Good afternoon, good evening, good whatever. Thanks for joining us tonight. Really good to see familiar faces here, new faces, all sorts of folks. We're going to get started in just like 2 or 3 minutes as we give folks a chance to get in and get settled. So if you have anything you'd like to do to make yourself comfortable, grab some water or anything like that, please feel free.
I needed that hydration reminder.
Yeah, do it. And if any of y'all would like, we can go ahead and start an icebreaker. If you would like to share your name, your pronouns, if you'd like to share your location so we can see how much coverage we're getting here. And also as an icebreaker question, what's your makeup experience or journey been like? So feel free to share that in the chat. I'm not going to read off names as they come in just because we are recording. More on that in a moment. But yeah, feel free. I'm Lena, by the way, Lena Larva, she or they. I'm coming from Las Cruces, New Mexico. And my makeup experience and journey has been difficult. Was not something I paid much attention to until I started my transition at 35. And at that point, I felt like I was beyond hope. So I'm really looking forward to this in order to improve some of my own skills. Yes. The rest of you all, please feel free to chime in. See, friend says makeup experience horrible. Oh, we have someone from Portland. Playing with makeup as a teen, but gone more natural recently. We got a pair joining us from New York. Wonderful. San Diego. Ooh, we have a scare actor joining us. That's exciting.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty fun.
Yeah. So you can keep those coming. Colorado. Makeup is sensory nightmare, except when it isn't. I feel you there, friend. An abject lesson in the pink taps. That's true. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Welcome to our friend from Dallas, Texas, a former home of mine. All right, so I'm going to stop my share real quick and then put it right back up. So, oh, look at all those people. Sorry, I just had to swap a window out real quick, and now I'm going to share that right back. So, here we go. Oh. There it is. Can y'all see that again?
Yes.
Cool. So this is makeup tips beyond the binary. I'm just going to go through some housekeeping stuff and then we'll get into everything. We have our guest speaker today, who is my old friend as of just 20 minutes ago, and maybe your new one, Jay, who is a licensed esthetician and content creator, a Thai American esthetician and content creator who uses makeup as a tool to explore ideas within and beyond the gender binary. He has almost a decade of experience doing makeup on others for special occasions and photo shoots, and especially loves doing personalized lessons with his clients one-on-one. I need those. I'm gonna hire you after this. They're passionate about sharing years of beauty expertise, as well as resources and information around the current COVID-19 pandemic. Current is still a key word there, to carry on the legacy of queer resistance to the systemic neglect and mass disablement of marginalized peoples. Love that so much. Thank you for all that you do, Jay. So this will be a 90-minute gathering. It'll be a demonstration and discussion of makeup techniques. And just a note here, despite the association of makeup with femininity in society, makeup is a tool for expression and play for all genders. So you'll get product recommendations, application tips, and the affirming vibes that no makeup counter can give you. So come for the glam, leave with a gender euphoric glow up. Everyone's gender journey is unique and complex. We are not a monolith. So is their relationship to makeup and gender expression. Yours is not mine, and that's okay. We can learn from each other. If at any point you find yourself experiencing any difficult thoughts or you need support, please don't hesitate to reach out to folks like the Trevor Project or the Trans Lifeline. The numbers are there. You can jot them down, you can screenshot them, and they're definitely there to offer support. If you'd like to have captions on for accessibility or other reasons, you can turn them on there with the little show subtitle option. You will also have both a chat and a Q&A. So please feel free to have discussion in the chat. Just make sure you're texting everyone if you're intending to text everyone rather than sometimes it defaults to DMing individual people for whatever reason. Just make sure it's going to your target audience. But if you do have questions that you would like Jay to answer, make sure to submit those in the Q&A box so that they don't get buried in the discussion and we can keep them fresh in mind. Jay, would it be your preference for questions to be answered throughout, or you want to sort of have dedicated Q&A time at the end?
I think usually getting them answered throughout the workshop works pretty nicely, especially when it's
Okay,
relevant to the section that I'm on. And then
cool.
if there are any stragglers at the end, we'll get to them.
That sounds great. So yeah, throw your questions in that little Q&A box and we'll make sure to get to them. Now, this webinar is being recorded, so I'm not going to say any names as we're going through in order to, preserve privacy and anonymity, but you'll receive an email shortly afterwards with a webinar recording, with a list of resources, and with a post-event survey, because your feedback is always absolutely welcome and appreciated. If you want, you can go ahead and scan there or note that URL, which is where the survey is going to be. So if you'd like to just do it, not now, of course, but if you'd like to bookmark it for later, that's great. Otherwise, it will be in that email. We've got a bunch of upcoming events. The next one is on Monday with me, where we'll be talking about kink through a trans lens. Next week, we have one on a striking class, part of a self-defense series, and a webinar on tarot. And then next Friday, I'll be doing one on zine making, which I'm very excited about. And you can see in July, we have a few already planned: gender affirming wear and disability, and everything you need to know about ID documents, plus more to be announced. So that's it for the intro and administrative stuff. I'm going to go ahead and switch the slide deck, and I'll pass it over to our friend, Jay. So slide deck coming up right around now.
Thank you so much, Lena, for the intro, and thank you for being the person to do the technical operations for this workshop today. Hi, everybody. Once again, my name is Jay, like the letter, they, he. I'm here to teach you about makeup. And I've done a few of these workshops with Plume already, but this month, obviously, it's Pride. So this is the Pride edition, aka a little bit more fun than maybe the previous ones, even though they're all fun. So we can just go to the next slide. I have another kind of brief intro page, although that introduction Lena gave was perfect. If you are on Instagram or TikTok, if you'd like to see the kind of content that I make and share there, please follow me under Tiebrows. Ironic because I have no eyebrows by choice. But I love to help people figure things out with makeup. It's a pretty frustrating experience, like some people have said in the chat, but it doesn't have to be. And especially, I feel like makeup is a great time to get to know yourself better, learn about the things you do and don't like, and just have an outlet. Everyone can do makeup. I believe this. Whether you're doing this for safety reasons or if you are just using it to play around and explore, I hope you learn something from our workshop today, if anything. And before we actually get started, I want to just take a second to acknowledge a lot of the current events that are happening right now. For example, I am based in Los Angeles, and there are currently ICE raids targeting the undocumented community, which it makes up not just undocumented immigrants, but also trans and queer people, right? So I want to acknowledge that that's happening. I want to also acknowledge the bans on gender affirming care throughout the US, as well as the rise of fascism. These are the times that we're living under. I know it could be scary and overwhelming to hear the news, to be affected by these things or to witness these things. But I have found so much hope in taking the time to learn about our histories as queer and trans people, because there have been ways where we've prevailed before. There are so many things to learn from our history, and it just makes me believe in a better future for all of us. And I also want to say makeup to some people is about vanity, or it's about being shallow, or just about how you look. And I really don't see it that way. Makeup also has a history as well, especially within our community. We used to not be able to paint our faces and go out in public without being stopped and without being harassed. So the fact that we can do that today is all thanks to our ancestors. And even if you do little things like this, taking the time to get to know yourself through makeup, doing whatever creative outlet you have, taking the time to learn about the things happening all around us, every little decision you make, especially during these times, makes a bigger impact than you might think. So thank you so much for showing up today. I really hope something in this workshop is useful to you and you find the strength to show up authentically every day, because you never know who you're gonna influence and who you're going to impact by just existing. All right, and then we can go to the next slide. We can actually get into the makeup stuff. So seeing the responses in the chat, I see we are all at different levels of makeup experience, which is perfect. I love teaching people who have little to no experience, because y'all are like blank canvases and you're not tainted by all the conflicting views you see online about makeup, and it just makes things so much easier. So let's go over the transgender agenda for today. We're going to start about the basics. Before makeup, we got to talk about skincare. So we'll definitely address some of that, talk about some tools that you can use for makeup, and basically how to get started. And then we're going to have a section learning about eyebrows, how to make them more masculine or more feminine. I know somebody in the chat earlier said they wanted to learn how to masculinize their brows. So we're going to get there. We're going to get there. And then we have a section on contouring, where I basically kind of demystify it a little bit and, of course, show you how to achieve certain results depending on the presentation or the expression you're going for. And then the last part of our workshop today is about leaving a lasting impact with your makeup. How to stand out, be gay and queer and trans and proud and loud, and also how to make your makeup actually last on your face. Because that is a very big topic, as Pride is in the summer. It's warm, it's hot. How do I make sure my makeup doesn't slide off? I'll tell you, okay? Don't worry about it. Let's do the next slide, please. Okay, so the basics, what are they? Let's check out the next slide and see. Skin prep. It is not fancy. Skin prep just means doing something to your skin, even something as simple as washing your face and putting on a lightweight moisturizer before you start doing makeup. The reason why this matters is because the way that your skin is before makeup really sets the stage for how your makeup will look and how it will last throughout the day. So I will have some product recommendations coming up if you're not sure which skincare products to use for your skin type. We also will talk briefly about different tools. Yes, there are makeup brushes, but they come in all sorts of sizes and shapes. And what's a beauty blender? What's a makeup sponge? Why does it matter? We will talk about that. And if you don't have tools, if you're really starting from bare bones, your fingers are God's gifts to you for makeup application. Even professional makeup artists use fingers. And then we'll talk a little bit about different types of products. I'm sure people here have probably gotten overwhelmed by the vast array of makeup that is available to purchase. How do you know what kind to get? Who needs what? Do I need it all? Do I only need one kind? It all comes down to, first of all, skin type. So if you are very dry to the point where, let's say, you can see a lot of texture on your skin, lines are visible, or you might even have visible flaking of the skin, you definitely want to go more for liquids and creams. These kinds of products will spread on the skin and sit better versus powders, which are a little drying. If you are oily, you want to go for liquids, not so much creams, because liquids tend to dry down a little bit more and they don't stay slippery on the skin. But you always want to set that with some kind of powder, especially if you're oily. And if you're not sure if you're dry or you're oily, if you never really have issues with your skin, you can pick and choose what makes sense for you. And this will have to do with preference as well. I know somebody had mentioned makeup can be like a sensory nightmare. And part of figuring that out is to learn the differences between different products and textures and consistencies, which it's a lot of trial and error, honestly, but I will try my best to prep you however I can through this workshop today. We can head on to the next slide. These are just some product recommendations. And I split it down the center. On the left side of the page here, we have a milky hydrating toner. A toner is used after you wash your face, before serums, and before your moisturizer. The reason why you might want to use a toner is if your skin is a little bit parched, but it can't handle a thick cream. If that's a little too much, this side is more for like oily and normal skin. Yes, even oily skin needs to do skin prep before makeup because oil will break down your makeup. So we have to really pay attention to what we're putting on there before we actually do anything. And you do want to use a moisturizer even for oilier skin. There's different kinds of moisturizers. Some are lighter than others. So I recommend you try to aim for something that's a gel consistency if you're super, super, super oily. If you are kind of oily, check out a gel cream like this Omega Water Cream from the Inky List, very affordable brand. Some people will also just prefer a nice sunscreen that is moisturizing on its own. Even if it's not marketed as a moisturizer with SPF, feel the consistency. Try it out. What if you wash your face and you only put on sunscreen? If that's enough moisture for you, perfect. You just need to balance out your skin's oil and water levels before you put on makeup, and you'll get the best results that way. I also included some primers. So for oily skin, the tendency is that oil will come through, especially on the nose and the forehead, right? The oil is coming from within our skin. When we put on makeup, the makeup just sits on top. A primer will be that step that will be a barrier between your skin and the makeup. So a mattifying primer like this one from Danessa Myricks, you would put this on after all of your skincare is done. And then you would put on your foundation or whatever face makeup on top, and it'll help really, really control that shine throughout the day. And then on the right side, it's more for normal to dry skin types. Again, if you can visibly see flakiness, if you can see just like areas that are more tight or textured, you probably are leaning more towards dry skin. So ideally, you'll use some kind of hydrating serum. I love this one from Glow Recipe. You might have seen it around. Smells like watermelon, very fun, but it also leaves your skin nice and glowy. So it gives your makeup more slip. Sometimes with drier skin, if you put on some makeup and no skincare, you might notice your makeup actually kind of like it gets sucked up. All the hydrating ingredients in the makeup products are just immediately being absorbed by your skin because it's lacking that. It's lacking oil, it's lacking water and hydration, which is why prepping your skin is super, super crucial if you have very dry skin. And then following up the serum, you can use a nice, rich moisturizer that is still a little bit on the thinner, lightweight side. I do like the Cetaphil moisturizer here, super easy to find in drugstores. It's not scented or anything, and it will provide a really nice base for your makeup. I also included a sunscreen option because if you're going to celebrate Pride, I'm sure you're going to be outside in the sun, looking beautiful, but we need to protect your skin. So SPF will always go after your moisturizer. Some people who are very dry will need both moisturizer and SPF to really get ample moisture that will stay on the skin throughout the day. And then this is a little extra, but you could also do a primer before your foundation if you have dry skin. Again, I love Danessa Myricks as a makeup brand. She makes beautiful complexion products, and she has this glowy primer that is nice and thin, like a serum, but it makes your skin feel and look so beautiful and healthy. But it's not necessary. No, you don't need every single one of these steps. You need at least you need a moisturizer. And primer can help. Some people don't really need it though. This is just some suggestions for you. All right, let's go to the next slide, please. These are just some examples of some brushes and tools that you can use to apply your makeup. There are actually links on this slide to a page that breaks down which makeup brush is meant for what. So what do I use a denser brush for versus a looser brush? Or for eye brushes, for eyeshadow and eye makeup, what shape do I need to get a certain effect? So if Lena, you're able to send those links in the chat and folks can check that out, along with the disabled friendly makeup brushes that are great options for anybody who struggles with motion in their hands. These are some really good resources to see, but again, a lot of trial and error. We all have different face shapes. We all have different needs for our skin and different makeup preferences. So ultimately what you will like really depends on what you're trying to do with your makeup. But hopefully these will help you narrow down your options and make you feel more confident in choosing tools for your makeup. All right, so let's get into eyebrows. I feel like everyone always asks me about eyebrows even though I don't have any, but trust me, I know how to draw them in, otherwise I would not shave them off. Okay. Eyebrows are so important. If eyes are the windows to the soul, eyebrows are curtains to the soul or something. They make a huge difference in the way that your face looks. If you were to try one eyebrow style on one side of your face and a different one on the other side, that is a great way to see what you like and what you might not prefer when it comes to eyebrows. But let's check out the differences between a more masculine versus a more feminine eyebrow. And I put those in air quotes because, it really depends. But yes, on the next slide, I love this diagram so much. This is so helpful to see side by side, like I said, the differences that your brows can make to your face and to your eye shape. If we're going for a more masculine eyebrow, usually the placement is going to be lower, like closer to your eyes. The shape of the brow will have little to no arch, which just means it's a little straighter. It's not going to be so floop. And then they tend to be like bushy or uneven. The fun thing about doing more masculine makeup or expressing more masculine is that you can be so disheveled looking and it will just make you look even more masculine. You don't have to be perfect. And when your eyebrows are closer inwards, so closer to your nose bridge, that also will contribute to the more masculine look, as well as having a similar thickness of eyebrow so it doesn't get thinner at the end, basically. Now, if you're going for a more feminine eyebrow, it's definitely more shapely and has a higher arch, which is the highest part of the eyebrow. Usually, I don't necessarily agree that feminine eyebrows are always clean or like always well groomed. That's not always the case, but it can help to have them more well groomed because you can see the shape of your eyebrow a lot better without extra stray hairs around it. And then feminine eyebrows will be a little further from the nose bridge, and the brow will flick and thin out to a tail rather than staying the same width all the way through. And you want to work with what you got. Some of us have no eyebrows, which makes it a little easier to just make up whatever shape we want to do. But if you naturally have very dense or thick eyebrows and you're not sure how to achieve a more thin, like feminine eyebrow grooming, so getting it waxed or threaded to a certain shape will make makeup application a lot easier for you because it's harder to draw on eyebrows on top of pre-existing hair, but it's easier if you just have a nice shape to follow and fill in that way. So if that's an option, I would suggest that. I also just want to take a second. Reminder that you are free to ask any questions throughout the workshop. if I'm going a little quick, or if you're like, wait, Jay, go back to that one point. I want to know more. Please feel free. Please in the chat, just let me know. Because there's a lot to it. I'm giving you the rundown and the basics, but we can talk just about eyebrows for the next hour. There's a lot to be said, but there's also going to be the Q&A at the end, just in case you think of any questions you might have missed early on. But just a little reminder, because y'all seem a little bit shy today, but hopefully I'm not too scary. So let's check out the next slide with some product recommendations. This, depending on the effect that you want from your eyebrows, as well as what you already got, you want to consider different products. I basically listed like some of the most popular types of eyebrow products. So a brow gel, a brow powder, brow pen, or brow pencil are very common to see in stores. Let's say you have dense eyebrows and they're just not that dark. Like you want to emphasize them more, you want to bring them out, but the shape is already there and they're pretty even in terms of the hair. You can always go for a brow gel or a brow mascara. What that's going to do, it's going to add some color to pre-existing hair. Brow gels are not going to apply makeup on the skin under the brow. It really catches onto the hairs that exist already. Great option if you're super low maintenance, or if you like a messier kind of look that's not super sharp and clean and precise. And you could also use brow gels as your little mustache enhancer too. Fun facts. Okay, I have a couple questions. How do I treat my skin before applying makeup? I have dry, flaky skin on my face, but my nose is pretty oily. Yes, so sounds like you have combination skin. What you want to do is definitely give your face a nice, gentle cleanse before you put on makeup. I would recommend looking into exfoliating facial scrubs, like little pads. They're one-time use pads, and they'll usually be soaked with like a liquid exfoliant, which will help to loosen up that dead skin and remove that. And the pads will be a little bit bumpy because those are great to get off that visible flakiness. But also, if you have oily skin, it will penetrate through the oil. So it will address anything that you have going on with your combination skin. And then, of course, I would definitely recommend a moisturizer and a sunscreen. So if your skin is a little bit oily on the nose, that's when a mattifying primer just on the nose before foundation will be very helpful for you, because you don't need to apply that mattifying primer on the dry areas, just the oily parts, right? So yeah, exfoliating facial scrubby pads, moisturizer slash sunscreen, and then after you wait for your sunscreen to set on your skin, give it like 15 minutes before you put on makeup. That way, you're not going to move around the protection of the sunscreen. You're not going to mess it up and leave holes in your SPF. But yes, usually combination skin, you'll just need to do some spot treatment here and there. Yes, please do write everything down. I know there's a lot of information. What products should somebody with red hair use? Brown makeup always seems brown. So you will see the shade, it's usually called Auburn. That will be an available shade on a lot of eyebrow lines, especially from Anastasia Beverly Hills. That's the eyebrow pencil I have on this slide. I know for sure they have an Auburn shade, which will tinge more on the reddish part, but not super like orange brown. You want to check out from brand to brand though, because your kind of red might not match the red that a brand offers. So yeah, if you can't even find a red or auburn kind of shade in the brow products you're looking for, you might want to try a very warm brown, but it's a case by case basis. Usually brands do have products for red hair though, so yeah, maybe do some window shopping and see which ones. But Anastasia Beverly Hills, NYX Cosmetics in the drugstore, they definitely have a shade for red hair. Okay, somebody said my face is the exact opposite of the previous person, where their nose is dry and flaky while their face is super oily. Honestly, similar advice. I would definitely recommend cleansing your face beforehand. You can still use a lightweight moisturizer. Just make sure It's not too thick and too creamy for day use. You might even want to put on an extra layer of moisturizer on your nose since it's drier, or you can use a different, richer moisturizer just on the nose and then a more gel or gel cream moisturizer on the rest of your face. Just treat each area, like, give it what it needs, you know? And then with primer, you would use a mattifying primer basically everywhere except your nose. Can you please note the type of application you just said for my nose? So I mentioned using a mattifying primer, and you would basically put that on. You can use your fingers, you can use a brush, just kind of press on a mattifying primer in that area. And I say press because they usually will kind of dry down and be hard to kind of blend in. So if you press, you're getting that into those pores in that area where you're getting oily, and you have more control over where that product goes. So yeah, let me know if that makes sense. And then somebody asked, when attempting to find the right shades of products, are you stuck with what you buy, or do some places let you return the ones that don't match? Pretty much every store has a return policy, even for used cosmetics. You just want to check it out and see if they offer that. But yeah, big box stores like Sephora and Ulta, Target, CVS, you can definitely return products that don't work for you. As somebody who works in beauty retail, I see a lot of products being returned that are like barely touched. So I highly encourage you to spend the time in store to play around with them if you can. It also helps to do research on them before you go in so you know where to look and like which products to try out and compare. But yes, you can definitely return products usually within 30 days. Yes, mattifying, you spelled that correctly. Yes, mattifying products are great for oily skin, or in general, if somebody doesn't like that glowy look. Some people think it looks like oily or sweaty. I disagree. I think it looks cute. But if you don't like that, go for more mattifying products. You'll find that label, matte, MATTE, or mattifying. It's in primers. Some moisturizers even have a mattifying effect. You'll see it in foundation, concealer, even lipstick, blush, etc. This just tells you the finish of the product, aka how much light is going to reflect off of that product. When you're oily, you want to probably minimize the amount of light that reflects off your skin so it doesn't accentuate oiliness. So yeah, look for mattifying products.
And Jay, we got one question in the Q&A box that I can read off for you if you'd like to take it now.
Yes, please.
So it says, hey Jay, have you found a method to continue applying sunscreen every 1.5 to 2 hours on top of makeup that isn't a mist or powder product? Usually these products are too thin / not strong enough. I live in Texas and the UV is high. I'm also East Asian, so culturally we take skincare seriously, lol. I end up just skipping makeup to prioritize health of my skin if I know I am out during the day for a long time.
This is the question of the century, I think. It is so difficult to figure out a way to reapply sunscreen, although it is so important to reapply sunscreen, especially when you're living in an area with a lot of sun, and especially if you have lighter skin or a family history of skin cancer. So thank you for asking that. I definitely feel like the most finicky way to apply is actually the most effective. So bring the same sunscreen that you used in the morning before your makeup, put it in your bag, don't leave it in the car, take it with you, and maybe like a beauty blender sponge or a cushion sponge, which is a flat sponge that's used in a lot of Asian foundations. Using that to reapply the same amount of sunscreen that you put on in the morning over your makeup will simply give you the best coverage. If you're right about the sprays and the powders, you would have to put on so much of both a spray and a powder in order to get the protection that's listed. So if a powder says it's SPF 30, you would have to cake your face to a level you would not believe to actually get that SPF 30 coverage. So I would say finding a really great thin sunscreen, very lightweight sunscreen that you can put on multiple times throughout the day will be the best way to make sure you're getting that sun protection. You might just have to bring your blush as well or your contour. But I find that patting, using one of those cushion kind of sponges like this one I have here, you can get packs of these and they're disposable. So after they get nasty, you throw them away. But you can put on your sunscreen like on the back of your clean hand. You can pat that sunscreen onto your cushion, and then that way you can pat it on top of your skin rather than buffing it in circles where you'll blend all your makeup together. But ultimately, I think the easiest way is to put on an ample amount of sunscreen in the morning, follow it up with a foundation that has sunscreen in it as well, because then you're just layering your protection. And I find, honestly, even before I wore sunscreen regularly, I would wear a full face almost every day, and that would actually protect my skin, even though it didn't like technically say it had SPF. Just the fact that you're covering your skin. A lot of makeup has titanium dioxide, which is an ingredient that's already used in sunscreen. That's one way. Hats, stay out of the sun as much as you can. But if you have to reapply, cushion with your original sunscreen, and then maybe bring a powder if you look a little bit shiny after that, and some blush to touch up. But really, really great question that I'm still trying to figure out myself. Okay. So someone said maybe sticking to just eyeshadow and then you can just not put on foundation. That's my go-to as it's getting hotter and hotter. I don't prefer to wear foundation during the day because I'll have to put on sunscreen. For me, it's a little bit easier though. Wherever I go, I wear a mask. So that's already half of my face protected from the sun, and no one gets to see how nasty it looks under there. And it's my little secrets. But yes, hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully that was helpful. I do love like Korean sunscreens. They're so comfortable and easy to apply for that reapplication method. So I'm sure you've tried some, but if anybody else is curious about that, let me know. But let's move on to the next part now. Thank you for all the questions. I love just answering things. Okay, let's get into contouring. This is such a big topic. I feel like people always ask me about contouring when I talk about makeup. So let's see what is it? What does it look like on the next slide? Let's really talk about what the definition of contouring is. So contouring is a makeup technique that enhances the shape and structure of the face using a cool tone contour product to mimic shadows. So our face is not flat like a piece of paper. It is three-dimensional, right? On the areas where our bone sticks out more, it'll cast a shadow. And that's basically what we're trying to mimic with contouring, just so our face, our makeup doesn't look flat and doesn't look one-dimensional. Adding contour brings out your bone structure, or you could even use it to alter the look of your bone structure. And that's why such a great skill to learn. A lot of people tend to conflate contour with bronzer. They are similar in the way that they're both going to be a little darker on the skin, but the difference is that a bronzer is meant to basically emulate like a sun-kissed look. So think of how your skin looks like when it's a little tanner. That's usually the color of a bronzer, but a contour will be cool toned, almost gray, because it's trying to mimic shadows. Usually people will use both. I don't necessarily recommend only doing contour because it will look gray. So I technically will do like a contour first and then I'll put a bronzer on top. That way it actually looks more skin-like. But if we look at this diagram, I love this diagram. It's so helpful to see the placement. This picture includes the use of contouring, highlight, so the white areas that will actually bring features forward and off your face, which is the opposite of contour. And then you'll see that they use like a rosy kind of blush tone as well, which is very important to make it look like you have blood running through your veins. So depending on whether you're going for a more masculine or feminine contour, you will definitely see the big differences occur around the brow bone and the inner eye area. Same thing with masculine eyebrows. Eyebrows are going to be lower. Your eyes are more closed off. And that's why you would use more contour around the eye area to make it look like it's more deep set versus the feminine version where we're trying to highlight and bring forward the eyes, the brow bone, and that's why we'll use more of that lighter highlighting color in that area. For the forehead, usually a feminine forehead is very round, very smooth. Masculine foreheads will have more structure to them. So you'll definitely be using a lot more contouring when we're doing masculine makeup versus highlighting. And then along the cheekbones, of course, that's where most people know where to use contouring. If you can tell today, I did more of a masculine contour where it does start on the cheekbone here, but I brought it downwards towards my chin just to add more of an angular look to my very voluminous cheeks. And then for a feminine contour, just keeping it up here on the cheek to give that face a lift. You'll also be able to use contour right under the jawline if you want to accentuate the squareness. But if you have more of a square jawline, you put it on top to kind of round it off and give it a different kind of shape. And basically, you're chiseling away at the real estate there with your contour. So play around with that and see what kind of effect you like. And then you could also do the sides of your neck, especially if you're doing more of a masculine kind of look. This will just make you look more muscular. You can draw in an Adam's apple if you really want to. So play around with all these techniques and let me answer some of these questions that have popped up. Okay. I'm going to be shaving again tonight or tomorrow. How to conceal my stubbles when my razor is giving me a baby smooth shave. Okay. I would say the best way to conceal hair on the face is with a thick cream product. If you've tried to use a liquid concealer or liquid foundation on top of hair, whether that's stubble or like your eyebrow hairs, if you haven't gone to the waxers, recently, you might notice the liquid doesn't stick on very much because it's not very sticky. But you might have seen like in drag makeup tutorials, drag queens use cream foundation sticks because they're so thick and because the consistency of those sticks really help to hide the appearance of stubble. So maybe look into something like the Kryolan TV paint stick. It comes in skin tone shades as well as like even colorful or like white, if you want to do more goth or clown looks. But a stick, a thicker or stickier kind of consistency will really help with covering up the appearance of stubble. And then someone asked about the color correction. So usually when we have stubble or like a 5 o'clock shadow, it looks a little blue. For some people, maybe it looks a little bit purpley. We're gonna utilize color theory here and we use the color that is opposite of blue on the color wheel. So that's gonna be orange. Now, if your skin is very light, you don't want to go for like a dark red orange kind of color corrector because that is going to show through your makeup. And rather than helping to balance out the appearance of any stubble, it just accentuates the areas that you're putting it. It'll show through as orange. So if you have lighter skin, look for a light peach color. If you're very, very light, you might even want to go for like a pinky peach. A lot of brands will usually have different shades of color corrector for different, depths of skin tone. So you would use an orange color corrector before your foundation, and it helps to put a little bit of powder on top of your color corrector before you go on with your foundation or concealer, just to help prevent it from mixing with whatever product goes on top. I think a coral color lipstick helps to conceal. Yes, yes. So if we're being thrifty, if we don't have the funds to go out and buy a whole new makeup routine, that's the thing I love about makeup. You can figure out alternative uses for whatever you already have. If you do have like a corally or even orange lipstick on hand, and if you want to play around with color correction, if that orange is too dark for your skin, what I suggest is taking some of the lipstick and warming it up on the back of your hand, and then put your concealer shade or your foundation shade, mix it with the coral lipstick so that it brings that color closer to your skin tone. and then you could try that as your color corrector. It's a lot of trial and error. Like makeup is, it's a skill. We learn through trial and error and just trying different things. So don't be scared to play around, because the best thing about makeup, if you don't like it, just take it off. That's honestly one of my favorite things about it. But yes, hopefully that was helpful. And then yeah, I have product recommendations for contouring and bronzing on the next slide. So let's check that out together. Remember what we talked about earlier with the types of makeup products? Dry skin will do great with liquids and creams, whereas oily skin does great with liquids that are set with powder or just powder. So that's why I've included quite a few recommendations here. And again, every brand has their own shade range. So you might want to check out different options before deciding, because one might have a better shade for you that isn't way too dark or isn't too orangey or too light for you. But I love to do a stick or a cream kind of contour first. And then when I set my makeup after I'm done with liquids and creams, I'll use a powder that is a similar color on top of that, just so that liquid doesn't slide around throughout the day. But like I said, you can do just bronzer if you want to add warmth and if you want to bring out your facial structure. But I wouldn't necessarily only use contour. Sometimes it can come out a little bit gray unless the color of it has that little bit of warmth to make it almost double as a bronzer as well. But yeah, those are my favorite picks there. And if anybody has any questions, keep them coming. Keep them coming. We'll move on to the last portion of today's workshop, which is a lasting impact. How do we do that with makeup? So, makeup is not just makeup, it's an art medium. If anybody here does arts or crafts or both, treat your face like you would like a scrapbook page or a canvas or a page in your sketchbook. You can really do anything you want. And the fun part is that you don't even need to just use makeup. You can also use stickers, you can use glitter, you can use shimmer, you can draw on cute little shapes, whatever your heart desires. And no one's gonna stop you, especially not me. Okay, somebody's asking a question about mask contour. Would you recommend doing dots of liquid contour or putting on the back of the hand and then applying it on the face? I recommend putting on your makeup on the back of your hand first, and then using your brush or whatever you're going to apply it with to pick up that product and apply, like really work that brush or sponge into your contour product evenly on the surface. If you do a plop of like a contoured liquid and then you take your beauty blender or sponge and you just dab it once, that product is going to stay right in that area where you dabbed it. It's not going to be evenly distributed throughout the brush. So it gives you a less even application, or you kind of have to work a little bit harder to blend that out. And if you were to dot your contour on, or you've probably seen people will use sticks and they'll like swipe it on the face and do lines first, and then they'll go in and blend. The problem with that is you're just not able to tell how much product you're using. You will find out once you start blending. So it's a little more work for yourself. But yeah, coat it on your applicator first and then apply. Because with makeup, it's easy to add more, but it's really hard to fix it if you put on way too much. And then someone said, I love graphic liners, but I have no symmetrical skills. Any tips? I try to do reference dots, but it still looks off. I mean, yes, symmetry is not easy. And also, reminder that nature is not perfectly symmetrical. That's the great thing about makeup, right? Our face is the canvas. If your face is not symmetrical, that's perfectly fine. And you can try to do it symmetrically as possible. And I think that's a good skill to practice. But if you just naturally have like one eye that's slightly more open than the other, then yes, it might look slightly asymmetrical, but I don't know. I think that's part of the charm. But I mean, in terms of tips I have for achieving symmetry, rather than staying really close to your makeup mirror the whole time, like really locked in, I always will take steps back. So when I'm doing eye makeup, something really intricate, something very, very symmetrical, I'm not always so close to my mirror. I have to take a big step back so I can see what my makeup looks like. Otherwise, it is really hard and you get very like swept away as you're doing it super close to the mirror. And then when you finally take your look, you're like, oh, that is not what I wanted. So take some breaks from the mirror, take a step back or so. I like to have a mirror that's like propped up on my wall, and then I have another mirror that I use to look more closely, and that helps a lot. But a lot of it is practice. Reference dots are very, very helpful for sure. But a lot of makeup, I mean, no one is perfect and gonna get it symmetrical right off the bat. Have makeup remover or micellar water handy. I also love a pointy Q-tip. These save my makeup so many times because even if it's super wonky or it's really asymmetrical, some makeup remover or even like a little lotion, something that can kind of gently melt away your makeup will be really easy to fix that. But yes, hopefully that was helpful for symmetry. Yeah, let's check out the next slide where I have some products recommendations for more fun stuff. So I know a lot of people are going out to pride events or maybe not, and that's okay. But I feel like it is, for me, pride is year round. It's every day. I don't think we should reserve the more fun makeup looks for any holiday or any, specific month because you're just robbing yourself of the opportunity to have more fun in your own skin. So, here's some things that I would recommend to kind of spice up your makeup, play around with it, add some color, and just really experiment. Because again, if you don't like it, just take it off. Okay, somebody asked, what is micellar water? It's basically a cleanser for the skin. It comes in a liquid, super liquidy, almost like water. And there are cells in there called micelles, and they basically help to grab onto any dirt or oil, but it doesn't lather, so you don't have to wash it off. You don't have to rinse it. People will use micellar water on cotton pads to remove eye makeup before they wash their face at the end of the day, just to really get it all off more effectively. But I like to keep a little bottle of micellar water next to me on my makeup desk to use with my cotton rounds or cotton swabs to correct my makeup. And it doesn't completely destroy everything. So, really great tool to have, especially just as a skincare product. Micellar water is great if you have dry skin and you feel like every time you use a foaming face cleanser, if it leaves your skin tight and irritated, micellar water is a lot more gentle, but it will still cleanse the skin. You just don't have to wash it off with water. So check it out. Somebody said, oh, interesting. I wonder if a propped mirror were to have a line reference drawn on it with like a wipeable marker with a ruler. Okay, you're living in the year 3050. Like that is a great idea I've literally never thought of. But I see what you mean. Basically offering yourself a guideline in your mirror and like drawing out little dots. That could work great, especially when you're like taking a step back and looking at your face from a further distance. When it comes to like doing detail work, it might be a little bit harder to use that idea for that kind of that step in your makeup, but you should try that out and let us know how that goes because I've literally never thought of that. Never seen anybody do anything like that ever. So, very creative, very creative. And then somebody said, About face is so fun for graphic liner, but it always melts off my face. That's wild. I feel like I've had a lot of great success with the About Face eye paints, which are on this slide. It's that little trio. They come in so many colors, so many, like more natural colors as well. They're very versatile because they dry down matte, so no shine, and they last pretty long on your eyelids. You could use them on your eyelashes, like a mascara, if you want like a colored mascara, you could also use it on your lips too. I've used them as eyebrows. So many things that you can do with a matte liquid eyeshadow. If you're noticing that your eyelids are oily and they makeup just tends to melt off, you always want to look into an eyeshadow primer of some sort, right? So just like for the face, primer is that layer between your skin and between the makeup. If you have oil coming in from your skin, if you don't put anything to stop that oil from poking through, yes, it will melt your makeup. It will cause it to crease and to fade. So a really classic eyeshadow primer is this one from Urban Decay. This is the priming potion. You don't have to use this specific one, but this is just one that I've had for quite a while and it works great. Some people use concealer. If you have oily skin, I don't recommend using concealer under your eye makeup because it contains oil. And that oil in the concealer will just mix with the oil in your eyelids, and it actually won't really help that much in terms of preventing your eye makeup from melting off. So, eye primer is great. I recommend looking for the ones that have a more waxy consistency rather than being like a concealer. And the reason why the waxiness is helpful is because it repels the oil. It'll do a way better job at preventing creasing and settling in your eye lines versus something with oil in it. And then I also recommend if eye primer still doesn't work for you, if you're like, this makes no difference, try setting your eye primer with a little bit of your face powder. Just a teensy little tiny bit. That way it'll really lock in the shadow primer. And I find that it does make a really big difference when I try that. So yeah, check that out. And then somebody who has a monolid says, same, eyelids are too oily. Yes, I feel that. I feel that. A lot of Asian makeup brands, of course, their products are meant for Asian skin and features. So maybe check out some K beauty or even like C beauty, Chinese makeup products. They might help with holding off oil a lot better than some American brands. And okay, and then the person who recommended or suggested the idea of basically drawing a guideline on your mirror to get your makeup more symmetrical says, I paint portraiture guidelines. That is so cool. That's seriously, that's so cool. If you have experience in art, makeup is just another type of art. So you have so many of the skills and understanding of color theory or light theory and like 3D kind of rendering that will work to really help you in figuring out makeup. Because for some reason, I meet artists who think, oh, I can't do makeup, but then they can paint like a whole painting, and I'm like, what you're doing with the painting, I do with makeup, and you can too. So yes, if I'm gonna list off just whatever I included on the slide. So there's a glitter from ColourPop there at the top. This glitter is something you can use all over the face. You could even use it on your décolleté, your collarbone, maybe even like your shoulders. Give a little cohesion to the look. You could even use like bandages. I keep seeing these super cute bandages in the store from the brand Welly. These ones specifically glow in the dark, which is so cool. But they also have like ones with puppies on them. I love those. I have those too. I'm sure they have cat ones, like Hello Kitty band-aids. Doesn't matter what it is. Put that on your face. Just put it on. Just see it. See how that feels. It's very fun and not very expensive. Yeah, and I already talked about the About Face matte eye paints. So versatile. They last me forever. And because they're kind of like paints, you can get two different shades and you can mix them, make your own custom shade too. But I love that as an eyeshadow base, or if you're super simple, just one color all over the eye, blend it out with your fingers so there's no harsh edges, and boom, you got an eyeshadow look. It's that simple. You can pop on stickers, like I said. If your face were a scrapbook page, whatever you would use on a scrapbook page, you can try it with your makeup. You can use little bejeweled stickers. You can use pearl stickers, ribbons and lace and whatever you can find at Michael's. Put it on your face. No one is stopping you. don't stop yourself from having fun because makeup is so expansive in the same way I think gender is. So you might unlock a new gender for yourself. You never know. And then you can also draw on shapes. Why do a boring winged eyeliner that everyone's seen before when you can do some funky, I don't know, like you could do stars on your face, you can do hearts on your face, something geometrical, something asymmetrical. Who says makeup has to be any which way? The same people who are trying to convince you that makeup is only good in certain ways or on certain people are the same people who say gender has to be a certain way as well. So just shatter through those ideas, okay? And I really recommend, I know for some people it might seem strange or maybe it might be nervous about trying this, but mix masculine and feminine elements together. Like not just with your makeup, but your whole style, your expression overall. I dress very masculinely, t-shirt and shorts like every day, okay? But then I have a beat face. Some people might think that's weird and some people might feel like it's mismatched, but it feels comfortable to me and it makes sense for me. And I love that it's kind of weird actually. So with my makeup today, the way that I mixed masculine and feminine features is that I did a more masculine contour on the cheeks, like you can see kind of goes down towards the chin. But of course, I have this super sparkly rainbow eye look and eyeliner sometimes can be seen more as like feminine, but because I did it more straight, it's not giving me that same cat eye look. It's an in between. So try it out. Don't be scared. Everybody, I want everybody to promise me after this workshop, you're gonna try something a little weird. Just don't fight it. Just try it. Even right before you shower, no one's gonna see you, no one's gonna judge you. Try something a little funky. If you don't like it, you can take it off and you can write me a strongly worded letter if you want about how dare I suggest such a thing, but you really never know. If I stuck to doing my makeup in the same feminine ways that I learned to growing up, I don't think I would feel very comfortable in my skin. And every day will feel a different way, right? Our gender is not always so static. So try something weird out. You never know. Okay, I got some.
There are a couple questions that came in through the Q&A box, and I want to make sure we get those too, in addition to the ones that came in the chat.
Yes.
So there's two from the Q&A box. One, do you have any tips for people with very hooded lids to look more open or even in applications?
Yes. So I don't know if you can tell. I'll get real close, real intimate with you. I also have like hooded lids to where you can't really see that area right by my lash line when I look straight forward because the skin on top is kind of covering that part. Some people have hooded eyes just because that's how their eyes are like, or as you get older, your skin starts to sag on the eye area. The best kind of tip is to look straight forward when you do your eye makeup. So if you are looking down and you're altering the angle of your face when you do your makeup, when you finally look straight up, and this is how people will see you, you'll notice like, oh wow, I can't see my eyeliner, or that wasn't very symmetrical. So always look at your makeup from different angles, not just one, but you can even look straight forward and draw on your eyeliner just to give yourself an idea of where that's going to land. And then you can kind of go above where you might think it should go. Fill that in when you look back down, and then you can your makeup will be more visible that way and more even. So hopefully that makes sense. But looking straight forward while you're doing your eye makeup really helps you get a more accurate read of what it'll all look like in the end.
Cool. And then one more from the Q&A for the ones in the chat. And this one is more about your experience than about the makeup itself. But the question is, how long did it take you to feel comfortable applying your own makeup when you first started wearing makeup?
Hmm. So comfortable, I think for me, the kind of person I am and my personality, I do things that make other people feel uncomfortable. Like other people might feel very uncomfortable to leave the house doing a look they've never done before, right? But ever since I started doing makeup when I was like 11 or 12, I was not good at it. But you bet your ass, I still left the house. I still went to school with my uneven eyeliner. Like, I would just do it. I mean, most people are nice enough not to be mean to your face about how you look. But yeah, I basically just have had so much experience. And of course, this is so different for everybody depending on who you are, what you look like, where you live, the kind of environment that you're in. So if you are unsure about wearing your makeup out because you have just started learning how to do it, just practice and practice and practice. Like I said, do it before you shower. Because if you were to practice at least once a week doing your just an eyeliner before you hop in the shower, after a month, you're gonna feel way more comfortable to actually do your makeup that way to be seen by the world. So figure out for yourself like what do I need to make myself comfortable and feel confident enough to show up in this way. Take pictures of yourself too for progress. Keeping track of your progress and seeing how much you grow is so encouraging and really helps if you're like feeling kind of, I don't think I can do this, or I don't think I could ever learn how to do this. You can. Trust me, you can. Okay, I see some questions. I am going to just finish the last slide, the last couple slides, and then I'll get to the questions in the chat. All right. How do we make makeup last? Okay, like I got it on. I blended it all out, Jay, but now what? It's slipping and sliding off my face. Remember what I said about how liquids and creams, if you don't set them with powder, and let's say you have normal or oily skin, it will move around throughout the day. So you always want to follow up your products at the very end after your liquids and your creams. So with some face powder, it's called setting powder, which is gonna be different than like a foundation powder. You'll see there are various types of all kinds of makeup products. Look for a translucent setting powder if you don't want to worry about finding the right shade for you because they're meant to be translucent. You're not going to see, it's not going to add any color to your makeup and alter what you've already done. But if you want more coverage, you can use a powder that has a little bit of color, like the one from Maybelline here. Some people are scared to use powder, especially if you have drier skin, because they think it's going to make you look cakey or like you have a lot of makeup on. But actually, a really easy fix for this is to use a setting spray, which is going to basically add a little bit of hydration to the skin and melt the powders into the base makeup. This is also a great product to have to use it before your foundation, after you do your foundation, before your powder, and then after powder. If you layer your setting spray in this way throughout your whole makeup routine, you'll just find that your makeup will last longer versus only doing the setting spray at the very end. But this will vary from person to person. The Milk Makeup Setting Spray is great if you have drier skin. I love that one. Or the Milani Setting Spray is great too if you have oilier skin. And then for those like heavy duty days, if you're performing or if you're going to be out in the heat, if you really, really want to make sure your makeup lasts as long as possible, look into a fixing spray. The difference between a setting and a fixing spray is that a fixing spray will only be used one time at the very end of your makeup. That's because it has ingredients that form a barrier on top of the skin. So if you were to put makeup on top of that, it might not work as great as a setting spray that's just gonna hydrate and melt everything all together. But yes, fixing sprays are very heavy duty and it's gonna really lock everything in. You just don't want to use too much because they can be mattifying. And for some people, if you have sensitive skin, it might be a little bit irritating for you, but that is just an option to throw out there. Okay, let's wrap it up and let's see what we talked about. Let's go over. We talked about the basics of makeup. We talked about skin prep, tools, and what kind of makeup products to go for. We talked about eyebrows and how to do a more masculine versus feminine eyebrow, as well as products for different kinds of brows. We talked about contouring, how that's different from bronzing, what areas will to contour with so that you can get a masculine versus feminine look and kind of alter your face structure. And then we talked about the fun stuff and how to make your makeup last, right? Okay, and then we could go to the next slide. This is just going to be the Q&A slide. If I don't get to your question, or if you have even more questions after today, please feel free to reach out to me on Instagram or TikTok. Eyebrows is my username. I love helping people out. And if you want to like sit down with me and you want something super thorough and personalized to you, I do offer virtual skincare consultations as well as makeup lessons where I will tell you step by step what will work for your eye shape, your skin type, your skin tone, etc., etc. And I offer a sliding scale rates. So that's something to check out if you want. But now I'm just gonna finish off by getting to the questions that have been popping up in the chats. Thank you so much for sending these. Okay. Somebody asked, do you have tips on how to apply eye makeup when the under area is fatty? I notice I have a hard time concentrating eyeshadow tightly against the waterline, and I just avoid putting eyeshadow on the lower half of my eye because I can't get it concentrated. Okay, interesting. My application looks too soft or dispersed. It could just be because I'm using Western products on East Asian skin. So under the eyes, that is the thinnest skin on our face and the eye area in general. So something that can help is putting eyeshadow primer there if you have not done that already. And also be mindful of the kind of brush that you're using. If you use a nice, short, dense brush like this one, you're gonna have more precision when applying eyeshadow under the eyes, and it'll pick up more product so you can get more coverage out of that. But if you're trying to apply under your eyes with something loose, fluffy, something meant for blending, then yeah, it won't show up very well. So eye primer beforehand, or you can do your under eye concealer first and then do your eyeliner or your eyeshadow on top, which hopefully will help. And then somebody said, what's your product cleaning recommendation? Okay, great question. People usually don't even want to think about cleaning their makeup brushes, so applause to you. I love, let me see if I have it. I love this one makeup cleaner, makeup brush cleaner. This, oh, can you see that? It's Cinema Secrets. Okay, it's just blurring it. It's fine. Look up Cinema Secrets makeup brush cleaner. It doesn't require water, so it's great for like in between deep washes. If you don't have time to do soap and water and letting your brushes dry, I use this makeup brush cleaner pretty much every time I do my makeup because I want to use the same brushes, but sometimes they are caked with products or it has an eyeshadow on there that's very bright and will alter the color I'm working with. Super easy. Spray bottle, spray it on a tissue, and then you can rub the brush on the tissue and it will take off that makeup super quick. And it also disinfects your brushes and kills bacteria. So I love that one. And then for deep washes, which are especially important for brushes you use for like foundation or concealer or anything wet, because those can harbor more bacteria over time. You want to do that, try to aim for once a month if you can. Whatever is realistic in your time and your schedule. More often is preferable, but even if it's once every 2 months, that's better than never, right? I really like to use solid like brush soap from the brand Beauty Blender that makes those little sponges. They do have a solid soap, which makes it easy to clean your brushes with. It's just that when you do clean them that way, you want to store them upside down. Otherwise, the water will kind of break apart the bristles in the brush. And as for when is it time to get a new Beauty Blender sponge, if it starts to break off, like from squeezing it so much or from using it so much, little pieces of the sponge are breaking off like onto your makeup, clear sign to stop using that and get a new one. But makeup brushes, especially if you invest in some well-made ones, will literally last you like 10 years. Okay. I have some $1 Wet n Wild makeup brushes I've literally gotten like 10 years ago and I still use to this day because I take care of it. And I'm not being too rough when I'm washing it. So I'm not breaking apart the bristles and I'm storing them upside down when they're wet just so it doesn't fall apart on me so soon. But brushes will last forever. which is why it's a great idea to do research and really look into the ones that will make sense for your face and also the kind of looks you want, because you're going to be stuck with those babies forever. They last. Somebody said most of my experience with makeup is with stage makeup and face paint for plays. Regular makeup is easier to remove, right? Yes, absolutely. Because you don't have to paint on such a thick layer. Whether you're doing just a light kind of layer of makeup for every day or heavier stage makeup for performances or plays, I love to use an oil cleansing balm, which is like a solid oil pretty much. You scoop out how much you need, you melt it in your hands, and you don't add water to your face yet, but you melt that, apply it to your face full of makeup, and it will very easily break down all of your makeup in a flash versus using a makeup wipe. Oh, I hate makeup wipes. I'm so sorry. They hurt. Makeup wipes hurt. But oil cleansing balms are way more gentle and they're great for your skin as well. Like you're really getting in there, you're getting makeup out of all your pores and all the crevices. And then once you're done melting that off as much as possible, you add water, and that water will cause the oil cleanser to emulsify and basically rinse off your skin, not leaving any oily residue. So it's great for even oily skin. My favorite one is the Pharmacy Green Clean Cleansing Balm. You can find it at Sephora. That one has been my ride or die forever. I love that for skincare as well. Like my skin gets clogged pores sometimes. And when I use that oil cleanser, I can literally feel the pores coming out. The clogged pores dislodge themselves because the oil really gets in there and loosens it up.
So
Okay.
there were a couple of questions in the Q&A box. So do you have any tips for blush and what brushes should I use for different things?
Okay. I'm not sure if you missed earlier when Lena had shared the makeup brush guide, but if we can share that again in the chat, it is a great resource to read more about which brushes to use for what. Just because they come in so many different shapes and like different bristle types and sizes, right? So check that resource out and ask for like tips for blush. I if you want to be a little bit more specific, like are you asking about where to place the blush or what kind of colors to use or the difference between like cream or liquid? I can talk more about that once you kind of clarify a bit. So while I wait for a response, let me go back to the questions in the chat. Somebody said, okay, 3 weeks ago, I was doing darker and lighter two-tone lipstick. I love the darker lining Cupid's bow and bottom lip. I love, yes. And some people naturally have like a darker lip, darker top lip versus a bottom lip, which I think is beautiful. But if you want to recreate that look with makeup, it's so fun. Try it out. It creates a lot of contrast, so it really makes your lips pop that way. And then what about a makeup sealer that's in a spray, like a hairspray type? Both of the makeup fixing sprays that I mentioned from Kryolan and Makeup Revolution are like an aerosol can. So it is kind of like a hairspray type. There's also the one size setting spray or fixing spray that you can get from Sephora. They're all that aerosol type. And then someone asked, do I offer in-person sessions? I haven't for skincare consultations or makeup lessons, mostly because of COVID reasons, but I am based in LA. If you are serious about doing an in-person session, hit me up. You can email me. I am honestly really open to exploring that and seeing what we can work out because it's a lot different in person for sure, but I'm very good at virtual consultations, if I do say so myself.
So a clarification on the last question about blush. So it says, I was thinking mostly about colors or best places to use blush.
Okay. So let's talk about placement first. If you have a thinner face and you want to add some more volume and make your cheeks look nice and round and cute, you can do blush on the apples of your cheeks. So if you smile, that fleshy bit, those are the apples of your cheeks, closer to the center of your face. If you have, let's say, like a wider face, or if you want a different effect where you're kind of lifting your features, you can do what I did today and kind of following the cheekbone in an upwards motion towards your forehead. And this is just like one of the many, those are just a couple suggestions. There's so many different ways to do blush depending on what you want to do, what kind of look you want. But those two are usually the types of placements people will go for. So try it out because you will be so surprised by how blush changes the shape of your face so much. I also like to put a little blush on my nose, or if you want to look kind of sunburnt, put your blush across your nose. Very cute, very cute. And as for color blush, if you want to simplify it, okay? If you tend to lean towards like a pinky lip color, try a pinker blush. If you want something that's not pink, but you want a bit of color, go for peachy or corally blushes. I love both. It really depends on what my eye makeup is because if I'm doing something really colorful on the eyes, I like my blush to be cohesive with it. But I think you want to consider how bright is a color. If you don't like it too bright, go for a more muted color, like rather than a bright pink like what I'm wearing. Maybe you want to wear like a rosy kind of pink that's a little subtler. You get different effects from either of those options. So if you get a chance to play around, play around. If you have lipsticks on hand, wear those on your cheeks like a blush. That's one way. Like I said, you can use makeup for all types of uses, like even the ones that aren't explicitly marketed for that product, you can play around with whatever you got. Okay, someone said, what's the difference between eyeliner versus mascara versus eyeshadow? And then can somebody get a feminine brow waxing and use makeup to get a more masculine look? Yes. Yes, you can. If the less brow you have, the easier it is to alter it. If you have very thick and full brows, it will be a lot harder to get like that thinner, more feminine look unless you get them tweezed or waxed. The difference between eyeliner is like the black that I have on my eyes. It's really close to the eye line, and it's usually going to come in like a liquid, almost pen version. There's there's pencil eyeliners. Some eyeliners come in a tub and you have to use a brush to apply. Mascara will go on your eyelashes. So that's going to help to bring them out. And because your eyelashes stick out from your eye, when you wear mascara and other eye makeup, it just looks more three-dimensional that way and really opens your eyes, especially if your lashes naturally kind of go down. Curling them and adding mascara will just make you look more like awake and we could see your eyes better. And eyeshadow is basically what I have all over in a rainbow coordination. Eyeshadow can be used on other parts of the face too, technically, because it's a powder product. But typically people like to use eyeshadow to just add some color on the lid or make your eyes look deeper than they are, or you can use a light eyeshadow all over the eye to make it look just more like open and bright. So I could do a whole separate workshop on just eye makeup, honestly. But thank you to the person who also broke that down in the response. It's so helpful.
We probably have time for one more quick question.
Okay. Let's see. So I'm gonna answer the question about the eyeliner because they're asking, since I have hooded eyes, how did I do my eyeliner? I first used a colored, I don't know why I keep saying that, an eyeliner pencil. I used that pencil on my waterline, which is basically really close to your eyeball. I used that all on the bottom. And then I used a liquid eyeliner to closely line the top half of my eye. I don't have very open eyes. So if I put eyeliner all the way on the inside, it's just gonna smear or it's not really gonna show up very well. I tend to concentrate it more on the outer half and then under the eyes, it's more visible that way. But I just went straight out. Like I always have to fight the urge to do the classic cat eye that does not work for my eye shape. I'll just go straight out and basically connect where the pencil liner and the liquid liner are. So first bottom liner, second outer half of the top, and then the last step is connecting the two. Yes. And look straight when you're doing this too.
Hmm. Did you just tell them to look straight? Oh my goodness.
I am so sorry. Not me getting canceled during Pride.
No. Well, Jay, this was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of this with us today. I learned a ton. And I'm definitely going to keep a lot of this in mind as I'm getting ready for my next part of my evening. So, thank you all who joined us today. Thank you for the questions. This was a very lively crowd. That was very exciting to see. And if anyone wants to express any gratitude in the chat, that's always a wonderful thing to see. Keep an eye out. Again, you'll be getting an email with a recording and also resources and the follow-up survey so you can let us know what you think and how amazing today was. Yeah, keep an eye out on the community hub if you're on the community hub for upcoming events because we've got a bunch of cool stuff planned. So I just want to say once again, thank you, Jay. I loved this so much and I really appreciate you.
Of course, thank you for having me. Thank you for all your kind words. And if y'all do the feedback form, don't go easy on me. Tell me what you want to see. To give me that feedback. I am not scared. But thank you so much. Everyone's been so sweet and so engaging. I really appreciate it.
Mhm. All right, everyone, I'm going to close the room in just a moment. So, gratitude to you all as well. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I hope to connect again soon. Have a good night.
Thank you, everybody.